Netflix buried a $500 million Game of Thrones licensing deal that would have changed everything, and the reason they killed it is something both studios never wanted you to know. You were never supposed to find out this negotiation existed. Most people still don't know it happened, but it did. The meetings happened. The term sheets were written. The number was real, $500 million. And the moment it collapsed, two of the most powerful entertainment companies on Earth made sure the paper trail went quiet. Here's what you need to hold on to as you listen. This deal wouldn't just have put Game of Thrones on Netflix. It would have restructured how every premium franchise gets licensed forever. The real reason it fell apart is worse than you think, and it has nothing to do with money. Go back to the summer of 2022. House of the Dragon had just dropped its first trailer, and the numbers were staggering before a single episode had aired. Warner Bros. Discovery had just closed its $43 billion merger with Discovery, a deal that loaded the new company with nearly $55 billion in debt. David Zaslav was the incoming CEO, and he was under enormous pressure to convert every asset into immediate revenue. Game of Thrones was the crown jewel. 8 seasons, 18 Emmy wins. A global audience of hundreds of millions that had never fully moved on. The original HBO back catalog represented billions in untapped licensing potential, if someone was willing to pay the price. Netflix was willing. Reed Hastings had watched HBO steadily erode Netflix's subscriber numbers for 2 straight years. He needed a prestige anchor, something that would stop the bleeding at the top of the market and signal to investors that Netflix still owned premium television. His team made a quiet approach through intermediaries in late 2022. The ask was straightforward: a non-exclusive international streaming window for all 8 seasons of Game of Thrones. The opening offer was $375 million across 3 years. Warner Bros. Discovery didn't reject it. They negotiated. By January 2023, the number on the table had climbed to $500 million, spread across a 5-year term covering 22 international markets, every territory where Max, HBO's own streaming service, had not yet launched or was significantly underperforming. The deal had a code name inside both companies. It was referred to as Project Raven. 3 senior Warner executives had signed off on the framework agreement. Netflix's content team had run the audience modeling and projected the 8 seasons would generate between 14 and 18 million trial signups in the first 18 months alone. At Netflix's average revenue per subscriber, $500 million looked like a bargain. The lawyers were engaged. The structure was set. The deal was signed. Then it vanished. Here's where the pressure started to build from the outside in. House of the Dragon premiered in August 2022 and pulled 9.98 million viewers on its opening night, the biggest debut in HBO history. Every number Dragon posted made the Game of Thrones library more valuable in real time, not less. The $500 million offer started to look like a discount. Timelines on the Warner side began to shift. Counteroffers stalled. The intermediaries on both sides felt the air change. But that's not even the part they really buried. The deal didn't die because Netflix and Warner couldn't reach a number. It died because Max's own internal subscriber projections changed overnight. And what those projections showed terrified the executive team in ways they never disclosed publicly. In October 2022, Max ran acquisition models for their own international expansion into markets like Germany, Spain, and Australia. The results were unambiguous. The single biggest driver of new Max subscriptions in every one of those markets wasn't House of the Dragon. It wasn't new originals or exclusive sports rights. It was the Game of Thrones back catalog, the original 8 seasons. Viewers weren't signing up for what was new. They were signing up to rewatch what already existed. The moment Zaslav's team saw that data, the calculus flipped completely. Licensing Game of Thrones to Netflix wasn't leaving money on the table. It was handing the competition the precise asset that was supposed to make people choose Max over Netflix in the first place. Project Raven was killed within 2 weeks of that internal report. Netflix never received a formal rejection. The intermediaries simply stopped returning calls. By February 2023, the term sheets were quietly withdrawn. $500 million. Gone without a trade story, without a press release, without a single named source. Remember that signed framework from January? That's where it died, not in a boardroom argument, but in a spreadsheet that neither company will ever publish. Think about what that deal would have meant. 22 international markets getting the full Game of Thrones library in one place. A fractured, platform-fatigued audience finally reuniting. The competitive pressure on Max driving faster, more ambitious international investment across the board. And the precedent. Once Netflix licenses Game of Thrones, every premium franchise becomes negotiable. The walls between studios start to crack. Instead, those walls got higher. The audience paid for it in subscription fatigue, and the studios called it protecting their assets. So here's the question neither company wants asked. If Max's entire international growth thesis depends on the Game of Thrones back catalog as a subscriber lock, what happens the moment House of the Dragon loses the room? Because there's another studio sitting on a franchise just as valuable, with a buried deal far messier than this one, and they've worked considerably harder to keep it quiet.